Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
This is awesome! This is awesome! Hello and welcome once again to another wrestling review from Cheap Shot Entertainment. You are the Cheap Shot Nation and I am Luke. This is a Pentagon Junior t-shirt that I got from WrestleCrate UK, so check out the unboxing video if it actually works. Try to do it live. Not sure it's actually on there, but a very cool t-shirt nonetheless. Anyway, complete distraction here because AEW. Well, I'm going to review for you WWE Night of Champions, former Clash of Champions in WCW, which was the spiritual father of AEW. Pentagon Junior t-shirt, yay! Not going to try and explain that. It was in the Amway Center in Orlando on the 27th of September 2020, and for all intents and purposes it was a really good show. I managed to stay up for this one ish. Not having much sleep, but I did book off some time so I could watch it live, although I did go straight to Aspire Wrestling Alliance in the morning to pick up food and stuff for the food bank stuff. So make sure you go over and check out Aspire Wrestling Alliance, a not-for-profit wrestling company who is currently helping with the COVID-19 pandemic thing by providing a food bank, and we're going out delivering food to people who are isolating and things. So they are very much in the epicenter of the effort, so show them some love and get on the social medias, including YouTube. There is a link at the side of my YouTube page for Cheap Shot Entertainment, so you can go and follow and like and subscribe the Aspire Wrestling Alliance. Anyway, let's start off with the kickoff show. It is the Smackdown Tag Team Championships up for grabs. This one was originally, I think it was originally the Women's Tag Team Championships, but somewhere along the line, Shayna Baszler that one. Can't even think of a name now. But the Tag Team Champions, Women's Tag Team Champions, I'll just shout it out eventually. The Women's Tag Team Champions were not available for the show, so the whole show just got shook up a little bit. And it was for good, because the show was actually pretty good. So this one, Shinsuke and Cesaro versus Lince Dorado and Kalisto of the Lucha House Party. Since these two have been allowed to be Lucha and not so much associated with 205 Live, Lince Dorado and Kalisto have been on absolute fire. The whole Lucha House Party thing has been on absolute fire. I really like these guys, and it's nice that they've been split from the 205, because I get the feeling that 205 Live is going to be one of the first victims to fall prey to the releasing of staff in WWE, and it's happening all over the world. People are losing their jobs and it sucks, but obviously high profile WWE, it makes a massive difference to many people's lives. So this match, I'm going to give 2 out of 5 cheap shots because it was decent for what it was, but I felt like it needed more time. I think this was originally on the main card, but it got moved down to the pre-show because of other things that happened. And Nakamura retained the championship along with Cesaro against the pin after a swing and Kinshasa combo on Kalisto. So yeah, they retain the championships, and we're going to go straight into the main event now. The main part of the card, the Intercontinental Championship ladder match, triple threat for the dual championships. Of course, Jeff Hardy is the officially announced Intercontinental Champion, whereas Sami Zayn was the Intercontinental Champion before he had to isolate before the COVID-19 pandemic. So he's now come back, looking a bit like Che Guevara with his attire, and a massive ginger bush on his head. Anyway, and his chin, in fact. So, yeah, he's come back. He's been on absolute fire. He says he's the real champion. Jeff Hardy is the actual real champion, so he's come in with his own intercontinental title belt. In the mix of that, you've got the former Intercontinental Champion, the chap who won the tournament when Sami Zayn left to isolate, in AJ Styles. And Nia Jax, that's what her name is. The other part of the Women's Tag Team Championship. Anyway, AJ Styles is in the middle of this, and it's told a really good story. It was really interesting, this one. And especially a triple threat ladder match for 2 titles, very much WrestleMania 10-esque in the way it was. Was it WrestleMania 10? I think it might have been SummerSlam with the 2, I think. Yeah, it was. It was SummerSlam with the 2 titles. Very SummerSlam-esque. Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels in this one. Really good match. I mean, I felt like the rest of the card had to step up their game because of what these 3 guys did, and it put Smackdown up here, whereas Raw was somewhere down here. Sort of going, no. Anyway, Sami Zayn, very slick, very heel in what he did. He brought some handcuffs to the ring, and he handcuffed Jeff's ear to the ladder in the entranceway. Ouch. He's got the body modification, of course. He's taken the body modification earring out, the ear stretcher out, but he's got stretched ears. Now, if you remember a couple of years ago when he went in the Hell in a Cell with Randy Orton did something very similar by twisting a wrench into his ear, which was sick. And this one was, it was probably on par. He chained his ear to a ladder, and Jeff Hardy had to drag the ladder on his ear to the ring to try and stop Sami Zayn winning the championships. Now, AJ managed to stop Sami picking up the championships at that point, but lo and behold, another set of handcuffs from Sami Zayn, the slippery little bugger. He handcuffs AJ Styles to the ladder on his arm. There's no body modifications for AJ Styles apart from the tattoos of his kids' birthdays. Meanwhile, Jeff Hardy is trying to throw the ladder. I don't know, why would you do that? It's attached to your ear. Trying to knock Sami Zayn off. That doesn't work. AJ can't affect the championship, and what he actually does was he got AJ's hand and slid it in between the ladder and then handcuffed it, so there was no way of him getting out. Sami Zayn is officially your Intercontinental Champion once again. Did he ever lose it? This is the thing. I mean, I really like Sami Zayn in his current form. I like all these guys. I could watch this match all day, and I felt like because there was a couple of matches missing because of COVID reasons possibly, that all the rest of the crew, the wrestlers, everything just stepped up their game, and it was just really good. I remember one of my favourite wrestling shows on the independent scene in the UK was the show for Hope Wrestling, where the Boogeyman was supposed to turn up. He didn't. Everyone else set the bar to 11, and that's exactly what these guys did here. Much props. Just entertaining from start to finish. Really enjoyed this one. I'm going to give this 4.5 cheap shots out of 5. You should see my new rating system at the bottom of the screen. Anyway, we're going to a women's match next. It's the Raw Women's Championship. It is Asuka, the current women's champion over on Raw, versus Zelina Vega. I don't even know where Zelina Vega's come from. She is split from Andrade and Angel Garza, and now she's suddenly in a championship match. No disrespect to Zelina Vega. I'm sure someone somewhere sees something in her, and she's really good on the mic. She's really good. I'm guessing she's trained really well because of being married to Aleister Black. But there is plenty, and there are plenty of women on the roster that probably deserve a championship match before Zelina Vega. Don't get me wrong, I like the fact that it's something new, but this one was never going to go any further than Asuka, and Asuka does eventually retain after an Asuka lock. Now, Zelina Vega was made to look really strong in this one. I really like that. There's a new challenger, a new player has entered the game, but there's only ever going to be one out. There's only going to be ever one result in this one, and that is Asuka by the Asuka lock. I'm going to give this 2 cheap shots out of 5, simply because there was, although they made Zelina Vega look strong, I don't think that there was anything to really enjoy from this one. There was no real fight. As soon as Asuka locked in that Asuka lock, there was a little bit of peril. You know, Zelina Vega had worked on the arm, but as soon as she locked in that Asuka lock, there was no fight in it at all. It was just tap, 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 and that was it. So, yeah, the women's division made to look fairly weak by comparison on this card in general. I will get to the Smackdown Women's Championship very, very soon. So, US Championship next. It is Apollo Crews versus Bobby Lashley. Now, I really like both of these guys. I know some people don't like Lashley. I really like his new persona. But Apollo Crews, he's my man. You know, I remember going to NXT and the crowd trying to sing Hey, Hey Baby, because he was called Ooh Our Nation back in the day. And then as soon as it got to I Want to Know If You Want to Be My Girl, they stopped because they realised they were singing a song to a guy and then asking if they wanted to be his girl. And obviously the answer would be no, because he's a guy. Incidentally, I really like Apollo Crews' t-shirt. It's done in the old style of NASA. It reminds me of the old style space figures for the Lego things. And Lashley retains his championship. Of course, the Hurt Business is at ringside, which I really like the Hurt Business. I've got to say, I really like them. It's really interesting dynamic that they've got these guys into like a new nation, but call them the Hurt Business, and I can get on board with that brilliantly. Bobby Lashley is obviously the muscle in this one. So Lashley retains with the full Lashley on Apollo Crews, and I'm going to give this one 2.5 cheap shots out of 5. Again, there was no real competition here to say that Apollo used to be the United States champion. Didn't really put up much of a fight in this one, which was quite disappointing as far as it goes. But 2 out of 5 cheap shots, middle of the road. One of those not quite so throwaway matches, but pretty poor in terms of what we've just seen in the ladder match and everyone having to step things up. So we're going to move on to the next match in just 1 second. Raw Tag Team Championships up for grabs next. It is the Raw Tag Team Champions Montez Ford, Angelo Dawkins, the Street Profits versus Andrade and Angel Garza, who have recently split from Zelina Vega, who was going for the Women's Raw Championship. Again, a pretty throwaway match. Unfortunately, Angel Garza did get an injury towards the end of this match, which did mess up the finish a little bit, with Andrade not realising that there was an injury on the outside. Needless to say that Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford retained the Raw Tag Team Championships in weird fashion, because Andrade kicked out, but the referee continued to count anyway, which made it look like a complete botch. Obviously the referee was finishing the match because of the injury. It looked quite serious. Angel Garza could not move, which was unfortunate. It looked like a leg injury. I'm not quite sure of the ins and outs of that, but get well soon, Angel Garza, because you have been an absolute breath of fresh air on Raw and in the Tag Team Championships in championship picture with Andrade. High spine buster by Dawkins on Andrade, who gets the pin, and it's in dodgy circumstance that I've got here, but then I didn't know about the injury at the time. I saw Angel Garza on the outside, thought it might have been a kayfabe injury. Turns out it was actually real, according to social media and Twitter. And speaking of social media and Twitter, you can follow Cheap Shot Entertainment on there as well. So I'm going to give that 2 cheap shots out of 5. It was a very messy finish, but a necessary finish. And speaking of my last review for AEW, when there was the incident with Matt Hardy and they didn't finish it, kudos to WWE on this one for just finishing it off so we could get Angel Garza some assistance. So well done to WWE on that one. Shame about the match. Smackdown Women's Championship next. I feel like this one was a little bit of a throwaway because it was Nikki Cross who was supposed to go against Bayley, but Nikki Cross has also fallen foul of the C word, or I'm just going to say COVID, possibly. Don't know the ins and outs again, but it seems very strange that Nikki Cross, Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax all fell victim on the same night. So I'm guessing they travel together and therefore one of them has contracted it, which means the other two have to isolate. So we get Bayley coming out to the ring being all smarmy. It's like, yeah, I'm the champion, only as Bayley can do. Hold on a second, I can do this much better with my microphone. So yeah, Bayley's like, yeah, I'm cool, I'm good, I'm evil, and I'm still the champion. So predictable. She gets the referee to raise her hand. We then see Sasha Banks. Actually, we don't. I've ruined the finish for you. But anyway, this is a review, so you get it ruined anyway. Asuka comes out. She wants to be called Asuka Two Belts. What ensues is a fairly mediocre match, considering the caliber of both of these women in the championship picture, both being champions. But unfortunately, Asuka, and this is why I've given this one a very low score, Asuka would fall victim to the feud that's been building that everyone wants to see, which would be really cool, the feud between Sasha Banks and Bayley. So Bayley is fallen victim to Asuka's because no one is ready for Asuka. Bayley hits Asuka with a chair, she gets disqualified, retains the championship, Asuka wins, but then disappears completely because then Sasha Banks comes out, hits Bayley with the chair and starts beating down her former best friend in what can only be described as a throwaway match. Yeah, I'm very excited by the prospect of Bayley versus Sasha Banks. Maybe another Iron Woman match. I don't know. I think that'd be really cool. The match that made their careers in NXT. However, Asuka, Bayley, Sasha Banks, you got Asuka over here, like she just had a match and then she's had another match as well. But all of a sudden, Asuka says, I want a match, and then she loses, well, she wins the match and then she disappears. And then we've left with Bayley and Sasha, which is cool, but then Asuka, it makes her look like a bit of a chump, really, doesn't it? Way to build your champions, WWE. Way to build your champions. I'm going to be very generous to this match and give it half a cheap shot out of 5 because Asuka. So yeah, like I say, Sasha attacks Bayley. We're leading to that big feud between those two former best friends, which is good. But Asuka was left in the lurch as a result of that, and that's the bit that I do not like. Anyway, we're going on to the first part of the double main event, the WWE Championship match next. It is an ambulance match, one of the most brutal matches that you can ever be part of. You need to be incapacitated enough for your body, your lifeless body, to be shoved in the back of an ambulance and driven to the hospital with the doors closed. That is the only way you can win an ambulance match. And I think something like this would be really cool on WWE 2K22 if we ever get to see it. So it's Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre. Over the past month, since the last pay-per-view, what was it? Payback. Was it Payback? Yeah, it's Payback, wasn't it? Over the last month, there was Backlash, not Payback, Backlash. I know there was one of the two, and basically the same thing. Anyway, over the last month since Backlash, we have seen Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton become embroiled in what is one of the most fascinating championship feuds for quite some time. Drew McIntyre, the big smiley Scotsman, has actually shown some badassery that we know and love from Drew McIntyre. He's 6'10" or something. He's big, he's strong, he's the WWE champion, and Randy Orton's brought that side out of Drew, which we wanted to see since the very beginning of his championship reign, because Drew McIntyre is a very weird transitional champion. He's not even a transitional champion, you can't even say that now, because he's held the championship for a good long time, since WrestleMania, and he beat Brock Lesnar in that. So what have we got now? We've got Drew McIntyre. He's being a badass, and I like it. This is the Drew McIntyre that we all know and love, and it's the Drew McIntyre that we deserve, because Randy Orton is on absolute form at this point in time, and he can bring the best out of everybody, and Drew McIntyre is one of the best. He's the WWE champion. Anyway, so after battling inside the ring, outside the ring, Drew McIntyre beating the snot out of Randy Orton, and every so often Randy Orton coming back with his sly, calculated, serpent-like self and almost winning the match. Drew McIntyre hits a Claymore and gets Randy Orton back with a punt of his own. Of course, Drew McIntyre has been victim to the punt several times, as well as a couple of legends. Now, the legends in question actually turned up in this match, giving Drew McIntyre the help that he didn't need, but it was cool to see Randy Orton and all his misdemeanors coming back to haunt him. So there was definitely a hidden message there. So we got to see the Big Show, who stopped Randy Orton from punting Drew McIntyre in the early goings of this match. Christian, who attacked Randy Orton behind the stage, and let me tell you something, this Christian, I'd almost believe that he could even have one more match. He was on fire. And Shawn Michaels ends up super kicking Randy Orton off the top of the ladder, off the top of the ambulance, into a bunch of boxes. You'd think that would be the end of it. Drew McIntyre has been through an absolute war in this one, and now having won both matches, because Drew McIntyre does eventually do the Claymore kick and the punt to win and bundle Randy Orton into the back of the ambulance. There's nothing more for Randy Orton in this feud, I feel, because it is now 2-0 to Drew McIntyre. If they continue, don't know where they're going to go from here. They've had two really good matches. Incidentally, Ric Flair is driving the ambulance that takes Randy Orton to the hospital. The ambulance that's now minus a door because Drew McIntyre Claymore kicked it. But yeah, there was hatred, there was fire, there was everything you want from a WWE Championship match, with two big tall guys, and one very, very strong guy and one very, very calculated guy, because it told a fantastic story in a wrestling match, and the storylines are the biggest thing for me, as well as the performances of the superstars as well, and both these guys did a fantastic job of telling that story, along with the legends that came out to haunt Randy Orton, so to speak. he is the legend killer, the legend came back to haunt Randy Orton. Drew McIntyre retains. We're moving on to the Universal Championship. After I give the rating of 4 cheap shots out of 5, this match was really good. One of the best I have seen for quite some time. On to the Universal Championship match next. It is the main event of the evening. A newly heel-turned Roman Reigns, and compelling Roman Reigns, compelling character in Roman Reigns, is now flanked by Paul Heyman, and that combination has been fantastic. Even the way he won the championship was excellent. Loved it. Just to, because Bill and Ted. Anyway, so yeah, really compelling. Who is he going against? Jey Uso, his real life cousin. And the basic premise of this match was, if I'm going to do this to my family, think what I'm going to do to everybody else. And I really, really like the badass Roman Reigns. The heel Roman Reigns that we've all wanted for so long. The character change. He even came out with a different attire, no longer wearing the body armour, but just coming out as a badass Roman Reigns, looking good, pumped, and Paul Heyman just, casually carrying the title belt. So, like, he is my person who is going to get me lots of money, and that is Paul Heyman. Anyway, Jey Uso won a Battle Royale or something along those lines. He won a Fatal 5-Way. I'm not quite sure how he did it, but he did beat several top contenders to be the #1 contender. And in this match, he was very much out of his league. He'd never been in a singles run before, let alone in a championship match. But the storyline that these two told, the passion, the fire, the fight that was in both of these guys, the Island Chief and one of his family members, was just absolutely the most compelling match that I've seen for a long, long time. And it was to be it would be Jimmy Uso that would come down to the ring towards the end of the match. These two fought inside the ring, they fought outside the ring. Jimmy gave his everything and his all, but it would be Jimmy Uso who would come down, throw in the towel for his brother, as Roman Reigns was just beating down on Jey Uso, and he just could not take any more. He was using him as a sacrifice to show the Smackdown locker room that he is the tribal chief and the WWE champion. I never thought there would be a point where I would be cheering Roman Reigns, but then back in 2010 I never thought there'd be a point where I'd be wanting CM Punk to come back and do his thing. Our SmackDown is on absolute fire. Raw has got to keep up, because SmackDown is the place to be right now, and with a champ in the form of Roman Reigns, I think we're going to have a lot of entertainment for a very long time. I really, really liked this match. I've given it 4.5 cheap shots out of 5 because it was that damn good, in the words of Triple H. Really good. So, the overall pay-per-view, apart from a couple of slip-ups and the injury to Angel Garza, was absolutely brilliant. Another gem in the year 2020. They're really pulling it out here because, the Thunderdome's there, so fans are not in attendance, but the faces are. I have noticed that a couple of the screens have got one person on at any one time. But that's fine. I don't mind that at all. You've got to do what you got to do. But they have Pyro back as well because they've got a little bit of extra budget, a little bit of extra breathing room. The only problem is they're not getting the ticket money, but I'm pretty sure that they are getting the t-shirt sales. So really good pay-per-view. Not the best of 2020, not by a long shot, but certainly up there with any of the other pay-per-views that come before it. Now, I've been really surprised and really happy with what WWE have put out this year, and with NXT UK back as well, we have a lot of wrestling back on our screens, which is really cool. I just wish they'd reverse the decision and put NXT back on at a normal time, because I miss it. I miss being able to watch it and things like that, and I just want to watch NXT. I like NXT, okay? Anyway, you are the Cheap Shot Nation. This has been the review of Night of Champions, The Gold Rush, from the 27th of September. My computer is currently being fixed. I will have this video up ASAP, and yeah, really good show. If you've not seen it yet, I suggest you do before you watch Raw and Smackdown. If you're in the UK, then you maybe watched Raw already and got all the things that you wanted to, but then if you've watched Raw, you've probably stayed up for the pay-per-view. So if you're watching this, thank you very much. Make sure you subscribe. You are the Cheap Shot Nation. I've been your host, Luke, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.